I am continuing my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am reading in a chronological order of events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be skipping around a bit as I move along. But right now, I am reading in the book of 2 Samuel. Last video I read the first half of chapter 18. I will finish chapter 18 in this video. This is the end of the rebellion of Absalom. Remember, in the beginning, Absalom rebelled against David. David had to flee the city. All that good stuff. In the beginning of chapter 18, Absalom is killed. The battle is in the woods of Ephraim. Absalom, verse 19. Then said Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, Let me now run and bear the king tidings, how that the Lord hath avenged him of his enemies. And Joab said unto him, Thou shalt not bear tidings this day, but thou shalt bear tidings another day. For this day thou shalt bear no tidings, because the king's son is dead. Then said Joab to Cushai, Go tell the king that what thou hast seen. And Cushai bowed himself unto Joab and ran. Then said Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, yet again to Joab, But howsoever, let me, I pray thee, also run after Cushai. And Joab said, Wherefore wilt thou run, my son, seeing that thou hast no tidings ready? But howsoever, said he, Let me run. And he said unto him, Run. Then Ahimaaz ran by the way of the plain, and overran Cushai. And David sat between the two gates, and the watchman went up to the roof over the gate unto the wall, and lifted up his eyes, and looked, and behold, a man running along. And the watchman cried, and told the king. And the king said, If he be alone, there is tidings in his mouth. And he came apace, and drew near, and the watchman saw another man running. And the watchman called unto the porter, and said, Behold, another man running alone. And the king said, He also bringeth tidings. And the watchman said, Methinketh the running of the foremost is like the running of Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok. And the king said, He is a good man, and cometh with good tidings. And Ahimaaz called and said unto the king, All is well. And he fell down to the earth upon the face before the king, and said, Blessed be the Lord thy God, which hath delivered up the men that lifted up their hand against my lord the king. And the king said, Is the young man Absalom safe? And Ahimaaz answered, When Joab sent the king's servant, and me thy servant, I saw a great tumult, but I knew not what it was. And the king said unto him, Turn aside, and stand here. And he turned aside, and stood still. And behold, Cushai came, and Cushai said, Tidings, my lord the king, for the Lord hath avenged thee this day of all them that rose up against thee. And the king said unto Cushai, Is the young man Absalom safe? And Cushai answered, The enemies of my lord the king, and all that rise against thee to do thee hurt, be as that young man. And the king was much moved, and went up to the chamber over the gate, and wept. And as he went, thus he said, O my son Absalom, my son, Absalom, would God I have died for thee. O Absalom, my son, my son. Now, that's the rest of the chapter. It's a very simple ending. Why did Ahimaaz go as well as Cushai? Well, note the difference in their message. Cushai, when he comes, he says, The Lord has avenged thee. And when David asks, Is Absalom alive? He says, Oh, may all your enemies be as dead as that guy is. Cushai was not delivering he was delivering good news. But he was delivering it in a kind of a harsh manner. Ahimaaz came, what did he say? He didn't say God has avenged thee, but God has delivered thee. And David asked him, Is Absalom dead? He says, Well, there was a big tumult going on. There was some commotion. Wasn't sure about what it was, but I know the battle was won. Ahimaaz came to soften the blow. He knew David loved Absalom. He knew that David, even though David's love, as I said in my last video, David's love was a little too fanatical. He was putting his son, who had rebelled against him, above those who were loyal. But Ahimaaz knew this, and he wanted to soften the blow. Cushai just came, and Joab didn't want him. I think that's why Joab didn't want Ahimaaz to go, because he knew Ahimaaz would tell David I think he was a little worried about how Ahimaaz would tell David the news, and it might get him in trouble. And says, no, we'll leave you here. Send Cushai, because Cushai will give a better, will deliver the message better in my favor. That's, I think, was Joab's thought. But Ahimaaz, he just came and he wanted to soften the blow a bit. But David, even though they have won, even though David is now restored to his throne and him and all his people can return to Jerusalem, he only has thought about losing his son. And he goes up and he weeps. And instead of rejoicing at the great victory, he mourns. Again, this is not a good thing for a king. A king cannot mourn when a rebellion is put down. When an insurrection rises up and drives you out of your throne, when those who are loyal to you are once again, they bring you back, they restore you to your throne. And instead of rejoicing, instead of celebrating in triumph, you go mourning. This is something this is not a good look for David. And we see this continued on, that David, in his guilt and in his sorrow, he is making blunder after blunder in diplomacy, in politics. He is no longer able to truly lead his people. He was a great king, and even for a short time after the whole affair with Bathsheba, he was still a great king. But his grief and his misplaced, because of his grief, he is putting too much on the love of his family, because, as I said in my last video, he knows he's lost his family in the eternities. He doesn't want to lose them now in this life. And so he's putting too much on them, and he is forsaking the justice that must be dealt out. And David continues. He makes blunder after blunder in diplomatic and political matters. We can see he no longer has the inspiration and the divine prophetic gift that he had at one time that made him a genius in administrating the state. He's lost it. He is now just a mortal man, and left to his own devices, he's not doing that good. But we will continue this in chapter 19.